Okay, so here's the thing that no one wants you to know. Excellent service can save a bad meal, but an excellent meal can be ruined by bad service. We think it's time that the front of the house got the spotlight they deserve. Welcome to Dine Dish, where the business of dining meets the art of hospitality. All right, everybody, welcome back to Dine Dish. How you doing, Michele?
I'm good. Can you believe another week is, I don't know where the time is going. It's like
I
Friday again and we're
know.
filming our third episode.
I know, it's great. I think everybody should know who's listening. Michele actually opened yet another restaurant this week, which is pretty extraordinary. So, how is that going for you?
Actually, I was just going to bring that up. So this week we opened our second Vivi's Chicken and Mac, which is our new fast casual concept named after my daughter.
Good for
And,
you.
it's always a fun first couple days. I mean, the great thing about fast casual is they're so much easier to open than these huge monster restaurants that we do. So,
Hmm.
you get the kitchen set up, you have the training, and I thought for sure Gennaro was going to take 3, 4, 5 days. Monday, he's like, all right, let's open for dinner. I mean, they already started cooking, and by
Oh my
Tuesday, they
God.
were open. But I mean, there's still, obviously, this is such a cookie cutter where you can open and open and open
Yeah.
because they're so easy to run and the menu's so small. But it's still like opening a new restaurant. You still
It's
have pains
exhausting.
and growing
It's,
pains. And
yeah. Well,
so we're
congratulations. I think it's
open.
great. We're open. Everybody go down. Go spend your
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, so
Um,
this should be a very busy weekend because it's the first Friday night, which
oh,
in a
absolutely.
very busy area. So we're excited.
So, all right, just so you all know, we filmed this on Friday, but we don't air it until Wednesday. Michele just dropped that little nugget of behind the scene, which
Yes,
is okay. So technically it's
we
Friday, but we're
try
going
our
to say
best
it's
to film
Wednesday.
it. Yeah.
It's all good. I'm glad that, so this is like really a perfect segue because what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about, I know it's one of your pet peeves, it's certainly one of mine, the difference between allergies, intolerances, and dietary restrictions. And what amazes me the most is that people think they are the exact same thing. And it's not. One can cause you to die. As a matter of fact, last year, 2024, in Walt Disney World, and actually there's a lawsuit going on right now, there was a woman who went. She said, I have a dairy allergy and a nut allergy. They assured her there were no dairies or nuts in anything she ordered. She immediately went into anaphylactic. They used the EpiPen, but there was so much in her system it didn't work and she died.
Yep.
So it is serious business in a restaurant when you say to your server, I have an allergy. Intolerances are also very important for different reasons. And dietary restrictions are on the low end. Listen, everything is important. We want you to have a great experience, but death is the most important thing that we want to avoid. And then
Yeah.
we go down the scale. So let's talk about that a little bit, especially from the point of view of a kitchen, believe it or not, because I don't think people realize when you tell the server, I have an allergy, what that actually does to the kitchen and the steps that, you have to think of a kitchen like a well choreographed ballet or an orchestra piece, right? And then if you say the word allergy, suddenly a kink gets thrown in that chain and everything comes to a screeching halt. And so we should go through that so everybody understands what actually happens when you say allergy,
Yeah.
and why, if you lie, you're
Yeah.
really doing everybody in the restaurant a disservice. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah. So back to what you said, defining the difference is huge because I can't tell you how many times you hear a server go to the table and say, are there any allergies we need to let chef know about? And the whole table of women go, yes, I'm allergic to dairy. Yes, I'm allergic to cheese. Yes, I'm allergic to bread. Yes, I'm
Yep.
allergic to starch because they're on a diet or it's keto or they're vegan or that is not an allergy. That is a
Correct.
dietary restriction. And that
Yep.
is a huge difference.
Right.
We deal with that a lot in the Squisito stores because there's so many people that deal with the gluten sensitivity, but it might not be true
Celiac.
celiac.
Yeah.
And we hear this all the time. Oh, I'm celiac. Okay, are you celiac or are you gluten sensitive? You know, they're
Right,
very
because
different.
there are big differences. Yes,
There's
one of my
huge
very dear
differences.
friends is celiac, and I actually I talked to her the other day, and I said, "Do me a favor, walk me through what happens when you go to a restaurant and you say I'm celiac, I can't have any gluten, wheat, etc., and then you eat it. What happens to your body?" She said, "Okay, so within 20 minutes." She's vomiting and it's also
Mhm,
coming out the other end.
mhm.
And that goes on for an extended period of time. And then for 1 week, she's out for the count. She's extremely lethargic and she has extreme brain fog and she can't function for a week. And so, yes, it's not, there's no EpiPen, she's not going to die, but that just effed up her entire week and how
Yeah.
she feels and getting her body back on track. And so it's really important that you don't lie about these allergies or intolerances, but also we want you to feel comfortable knowing that we will take that seriously. So it's sort of twofold.
Yeah.
But I
So,
looked up some definitions about this,
yeah.
just so we were on the same page and we can, tell our listeners as well. A food allergy is a serious immune system reaction to a food, potentially causing life-threatening
Mhm.
anaphylaxis, right? Then you have an intolerance, and that's the body's inability to properly digest a food. And then you have a dietary restriction, which is a conscious choice to remove certain foods due to personal, religious, ethical, or other health related reasons. So those are the differences.
Correct. And I
Right.
have to mention, I actually have an onion allergy. So I have to tell you the
Yeah.
story. So I truly have an allergy. It's not life threatening. So, yes, the definition says it can be life threatening or cause some type of immune response, but it can also make you very sick, like your friend says, where she has
Yep.
horrible stomach pain. She vomits, it comes out the other end. I mean, I truly have an onion allergy. I was having horrible stomach issues. I mean, to the point where bending over in pain to the where I can't breathe. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to the hospital, the doctor,
Oh my
and
God.
I went to an allergist, and they said you clearly are allergic to the enzyme that's released in white and red onion. So that whole concept, when you cut an onion, it makes you cry. There's actually an enzyme that's released, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm allergic to that enzyme. So obviously, it's an allergy. I tell
Mm-hmm.
people it's an allergy. I'm not going to die if I eat it, but I do get horrible, I mean, excruciating pains to my side to the point where I can't breathe and I'm doubled over it in pain. So I
Right.
tell people I'm allergic. So right away, and this goes into what we're going to talk about on our show, how does the kitchen respond? Of
Right.
course, right away they come over if they are properly trained and the chef is very well versed on allergies, which they should
Yep.
be and take it very
Yep.
seriously. They then come to the table and say, well, it's in this dressing, it's in this dish, it's in that, it's in this, or can you have this? Which, what about, green onions? What about, when they start going over a whole list,
Can you
shallots?
have them
And I'm
cooked?
like,
Can you have them
no,
raw? There's a difference,
exactly.
right?
And
Yep.
I'm like, no, I'm allergic to red and white raw onions. So if it's in something like a
Like a
powder
stock.
or it's cooked down, I don't have
Yeah.
as much of a triggered response. So,
So French
yes.
onion soup is not good for you.
Oh, no. Oh my God. Are you kidding? If I ate
It's one of
onion
my
soup,
favorites, I
I would
swear.
it's actually Janara orders it all the time
Oh my
with
God, I love it so
cheese,
much.
and Vivi eats raw onions all the time. We go places and she, like, eats these red onions. I'm like, "Don't go near me.
Yeah, you're gonna kill your mother. Yeah, don't
Don't go
do it.
near me. You're not gonna kill me, but I might get really sick."
So this is what I would love to do. I would love to walk through the choreography, as I like to call
Yes.
everything, from the time the server's at the table, taking the order, what happens, the steps that happen after the guest tells the server they have an allergy, what the steps the server takes, what steps the kitchen takes, and what happens in the kitchen. Let's
Yeah.
just walk through this for everybody because, in all fairness, if you've never worked in a restaurant, you don't know. Right? And if you're saying that you have an allergy or you're lying and saying that you have an allergy, this is really for those people who lie. And we'll get to that. We'll talk about the Sex and the City version of that in a
Yes,
minute
I wanna
too.
hear.
Yes. Um,
And we
yes.
also need to mention, there's so much federal and regulatory framework now around allergies, and, I'm glad you brought this up because 20 before we get into training, 20
Yep.
years ago, they started talking about menu labeling,
Yep.
and it went back to, the whole thing of how many stores you have and the amount of stores you have to have, calorie levels on your boards and your
Yes.
menus. And a very good friend of mine started a company. I think she's at 25 years now. It's amazing. But she focuses on allergies and the breakdown of recipes in every one of your dishes. And what we did at
Wow.
Squisito, because we took this so seriously, we actually have recipe books in every one of our stores that we can do a reverse lookup. And what that means is if you come
Yep.
into my store, and you order, and I'm talking my pizza shops, not even my full service. I mean, this is how seriously we take it. You come into a Squisito and you order a carbonara pasta and you say, I'm allergic to onions. We can take out our allergy book and put onion on the back, and it will list every single recipe that has an onion in it. So my staff can say, oh, wow, it has it in this dish, it has it in this dish, and has it in this dish. So we can tell the consumer that's
Mm-hmm.
ordering
Yep.
at the register that, hey, it has onion in it. Or let's say you're allergic to, wheat, or you're allergic to this. We have a reverse lookup in every one of our restaurants.
And
So
that's actually should be the norm in every restaurant. There
it
should be a
should, but it's
Bible, and
not.
there's usually, right. There should be like the Bible, as they call it, and it should be a binder, you're right. And it should have every single solitary ingredient in every single dish on your menu. So if a server, a manager, or whoever is unsure, they can say to the guest, you know what? Give me 1 second. I'm not sure. Let me go look up the recipe. And then they can just do a quick search because you don't want anyone to get sick and or die, right?
Yeah.
So let's go through the choreography of this.
Well,
So
wait 1 second. I want to go back to this whole federal thing before you go through choreography, which I thought was very interesting. So in 2023, and I couldn't find more information now in 25, but they said that any of the 9 major allergens that are in any of the foods, milk, eggs, fish, shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, soybeans, and sesame, had to be properly labeled and mentioned in every recipe and on every menu. So if it has it in the dish, it has to be listed on the menu. That's part of an FDA food code, and it's been adopted by almost every state in the United States because that's how important and how major food allergens are right now, and allergic
correct.
reactions. And
Yep.
more and more people are having them, which is crazy.
Well, that's a topic for another day. Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a whole
Okay,
thing.
so let's talk
Okay.
choreography because I
Okay.
had to
So
bring in the operations piece because
yes.
that's kind of my
Yeah, of course. So let's talk
yeah.
choreography. So I'm your server. I come to your table and I start taking your order. And you say to me, hey, I have a nut allergy. I'm allergic to almonds.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you for telling me. So I take the order. The next step is I then go to the POS, the computer, and I start putting in the order. Whatever position number that person is sitting in, I label almond allergy. And then, of course, as I'm talking to the guest, are you only allergic to almonds? Any other tree nuts? What about legumes like peanuts? Nope, just almonds. Great. So that information goes into the POS as I'm putting the order in. Then the server hits send and then immediately walks their little butt into the kitchen to talk to the chef and or the expo, whoever's on the line, and say, listen, table 3, just coming in, letting you know, position 2, almond allergy. And so now the server's communicated it twice. So now it's out of the server's hands, right? So now it's all kitchen. So this is what happens to the kitchen when you say you have an allergy. Because again, as I said, everything is well choreographed. Now everything comes to a screeching halt. Now they have to swap out knives. They have to swap out cutting boards. If it's something on saute, they have to swap out pans. Everything gets swapped out, cleaned down, change of gloves, everything. And then they can start preparing your dish. Now, remember, when they do that, that sucks up time.
Mm-hmm, it
And
does.
it's not just your time, it's everybody's time in the restaurant. So that's why we say when you lie and say you have an allergy and you don't, what you're actually doing is not just delaying your food coming out of the kitchen, but you're delaying the entire restaurant's food out of the kitchen because you just caused a kink in that well-oiled machine. Right? So
Yeah.
now they make the dish, it comes onto the pass, whoever the expo is or the chef has to double check it. Before the runner takes it out, they should look and make sure, hey, is this almond free? Then they can run it out. And as they place it down in front of the guests, whatever the hell they ordered, they can just say, blah, 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 almond free. So this way, the communication is there. The guest now feels safe. And we have gone through every single solitary step to make sure that that guest does not die.
Correct.
Right? Good.
And you have full documentation that you followed all the steps necessary to make sure their request has been 100% done correctly and completed, because you want to make sure from a restaurant owner standpoint that
Can't
you
get
don't
sued.
have any liability or legal
Yep.
implications. If this person leaves and now has a reaction, you can literally say, no, my chef followed XXX.
Right.
Everything was documented. It was in our POS system. It was done on the line. So, it's you cut your CYA, you cover your ass from
Mm-hmm.
beginning to end, from when
Mm-hmm.
they hit the table to when that guest walks out the door.
Correct. So that is the protocol of what happens when somebody says they have an allergy. Now, the Sex and the City of it all.
Yeah, let me hear.
So let's talk about the Sex and the City. Do you remember the Sex and the City episode when, I mean, you've watched the show, obviously, right?
I've watched everyone, and I've also watched all the Just Like That's too.
Well, that's a debacle. That's a podcast for another day. So, because I could not stomach it. But anyway, so Carrie was dating Berger. They went out to dinner, and whatever she ordered, she said to the waiter, I'm allergic to parsley. Can you just make sure there's not any parsley anywhere on my plate? And so the waiter walks away, and he calls her out. He says, you're not allergic to parsley. Why would you tell the waiter that? She said, because I hate parsley. And if I don't say I have an allergy, the dish inevitably comes out with parsley, and I feel bad, and then I have to send it back. So let's talk about that scenario, because that's another problematic issue that happens in the restaurant industry. What do you think about that scenario?
Okay, I'm laughing because my niece does that with cilantro.
Right. I mean, people know that there's no
and
cilantro
you can tell her
allergy.
because you know her very well.
Oh, listen, I do know her, and I'm going to say her name. It's Fallon. And she and I both do not like cilantro. We have that gene where it tastes like soap or metal or whatever you
Yes.
have. But I don't tell people I have an allergy, because I have news for you. That does not exist. It's a preference.
It's a preference.
A
But
preference. And that's
funny, though.
the fourth part of this: allergies, intolerance, dietary restrictions, and preference.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, I'm laughing because she's done that before. I'm allergic to cilantro. I
I'm
can't.
gonna call her out on it. She's in so much trouble now. You better warn her.
You need to. That's why I'm laughing, because when you mentioned the whole Sex and the City, it came back to me, and I started laughing because I'm thinking of Fallon sitting at the table saying, "Oh my God, I'm allergic to cilantro," and I looked at her.
She's not allergic.
You're not allergic to cilantro.
But that's the
you
thing.
just
We
said it.
know. The wait staff knows that you're lying. And so here's the thing. If we know that you're lying, we're not going to go through the 25 steps it takes to make sure that you're safe. We
Right.
all know everybody has that gene that either they like cilantro or they don't. So we know it's not an allergy. So we're going to tell you, listen, I can't guarantee there's no cross-contamination. You may or may not get cilantro, but don't lie and tell me you have an allergy.
Yeah. Well, I guess that brings up the whole customer perspective of, how do you very politely communicate to the guest when they do, because they say it. I mean, I've heard it many times at Tuscan Prime. Oh, I'm allergic to this. I'm allergic to that. And I know for a fact they're not allergic to it, that it's a preference or they just don't like it.
Correct.
And then, having the server be respectful enough and handle it the right way to truly communicate that, is it a preference or is it truly an allergy, without pissing off the guest and then having an entire horrible nightmare experience, because that's what happens, because then they get upset, like, 100%. Are you calling me a liar? No,
So
you're not a liar.
When we know that people are lying and they're being dicks about it, excuse my mouth, my favorite thing is, like, they'll say, oh, I have a parsley allergy. So let's stay with that scenario for a minute. I have a parsley allergy. I'll go, okay, great. Do you happen to have an EpiPen on you? And the second they say no, they know that they're found out.
Coming from the onion allergy, I don't carry an EpiPen because it's not.
Right, but you're not going to die.
But I'm not going to die. But
right. The point of that was to call them out on their lie, because they knew that they were lying.
Yeah, but what happens if you ask me that and I'm playing devil's advocate? I'm now the diner and I truly have an allergy. I can give you my letter from my allergist.
Yeah, but an onion allergy, an allium allergy, is a real allergy. That's a real thing. Being allergic to parsley is not a real thing.
But it's not life-threatening. And
there's no allergy to parsley. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, I know.
It's a lie.
Or cilantro.
Right. Well, Fallon's going to be
Sorry,
in for
Fallon.
Fallon's. We'll talk about that Monday. But no, we know that parsley specifically is a lie. Nobody's allergic to parsley.
Yeah.
Allium allergies are a real thing and they need to be taken seriously, which is why when you said that, the first thing I said is, can you have it raw? Can you have it cooked? Because that is a different
Yeah.
thing. It's a different enzyme.
Yeah.
And so we take that very seriously. So I would never say that to somebody who has an onion allergy. Listen, we as wait staff, really good wait staff, people who are good at their job and know customer service, they know how to read a table. It's part of the job of being front of the house. You have to respond to what you're receiving and know how to receive what they're dropping basically. And when somebody looks you dead in the eye and says, I have a parsley allergy, you know that they're lying, which is why you can gently push back and say, oh, okay, this is good to know. Is it a severe allergy? So you have an EpiPen on you in case there's any cross-contamination. There's nothing wrong with me saying that. And it's also calling them out because we both know that they just lied. Because what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go into my kitchen and say somebody has a parsley allergy when in fact, it is not an allergy, but it is my responsibility to make sure that that guest who hates parsley, not allergic, but hates parsley, preference, again, we're back to preferences, it is my responsibility to go talk to the kitchen and be like, no matter what you do, this plate cannot have even a minuscule amount of parsley, zero parsley. And then that goes back to sort of the allergy protocol, which is who's ever on the pass or whoever's on the line, before the food comes out of the kitchen, they need to look at the dupes and make sure there's zero parsley on it. So that's when it gets handed off to the kitchen.
Yeah. So the other part that I really feel plays a big part is the menu design. Because, and I'm going to bring this up because it's
tell me about
happened
that.
so many times. Because if the menu is designed correctly and the ingredients in the dish are clearly described, I wouldn't have to say every time I order, are there onions in that? Because I literally have been out to a restaurant where I look at a dish. It clearly tells you what the main ingredients are. The first 5 or 6 are the main ingredients.
Yes.
And then it'll come out and it has red onions on the top. And I'm like, okay, it clearly didn't say red onion. And you didn't ask me if I had an allergy, even though I told you I had an allergy. And the dish still came out with onions on it. So, I also believe that the restaurant owner or whoever's doing the menu for the day or the specials should clearly mark the allergens or the symbols or disclaimers or however they're going to be marked, even if it's a special and the server's coming to the table and it's not written on a menu, but it's the special for the day and they're going through, this is what we're serving. They should also mention, the ingredients or ask again. And I think that's partly it has to be involved with training, and clarifying exactly what's in each dish, because as a consumer, you look and you hope that everything is there. And sometimes consumers don't know to ask, hey, is this in there or is this in there? And
go ahead. I'm going to push back slightly on you. I have a slightly different take on this.
Yeah. And the reason I say that, because in fast casual, like Squisito, where you don't have servers, you have to remember, I have 10 of those where they come up to the counter, they place their order, and then it's either to go, it's carry out, it's third party, or they have a seat and then the food's ran to the table. So they're putting the order in. So they might not have the luxury of a server coming over to them saying, do you have an allergy? This is in the dish, so you have to have the balance of both for fast casual and full service.
Right. So this, again, I don't think that we've talked about this before. I don't think there should be a separation of church and state between fast casual and Michelin star. I think good service is good service. And so, I have family members who have severe allergies that walk around with EpiPens. And they eat at fast casual all the time. And they were trained from the time they were very little by the family, make sure you communicate your allergies. So if you're even putting in your order in an iPad and not talking to a human, there is a place that you can type in allergies. And so, though I agree with you in one aspect, on the other aspect, it is not the restaurant's responsibility, fast casual or Michelin. It's not the restaurant's responsibility to be psychic and know what your allergies are. It is your responsibility as the person with the allergy to communicate that, even if you don't see it. Like I had a conversation with my nephews not long ago who have severe tree nut allergies and peanuts. And they were looking at a dish we were out to eat and it had pink peppercorns on it. For those who don't know, pink peppercorns come from the cashew family. And so I said to them, you cannot have pink peppercorn. And they were like, why? And I said, because it comes from the cashew. Like, how would they have known that? So that's why it's important for them to say, hey, I do have an allergy, or communicate it somehow, even if it's just on an iPad. But it is also very much so the responsibility of the training of front of the house and back of the house in a restaurant, regardless of fast casual or fine dining, that you have to know the ingredients of every dish. Because I know, and I know now this is where we are different. In Michelin, the amount of handwritten tests I would have to take. I remember when I worked, and I mentioned her on episode 1, when I worked for Chef Anita Lowe, she would give us, her captains, written tests quarterly, because her menu would change quarterly because it would change seasonally, right? Those tests would take us an hour and a half minimum, and she would grade them. And if we didn't get a perfect grade or a certain grade, we would be sent home and we couldn't work. So it's intense. But I knew every single solitary ingredient in every single solitary dish that came out of that kitchen. So the good thing about that is, of course, that's how we saved people's lives and nobody died. But I do think that there's a place for that in fast casual as well, that people are educated on what are the allergens and have charts up. Or like you said, you have a binder, you have all of the ingredients. So if people are unsure, they can go and grab that binder, and that's brilliant. And I think that's what should really be happening to everybody.
Okay. So in a perfect world, I agree with you. In a horrible staffing world where it's much harder to staff fast casual than it is to staff full service, and you're talking a whole different income level, different hourly, different pay, they don't care as much. And I mean, we can sit here and debate this for the next
No, I'm agreeing
4
with
hours.
you.
They
I
don't
understand
care.
the plight.
They don't care. We hope they care. We train them. We train them to care. We train them to ask questions. We train them to know their menu. We give them tests. And still, I can tell you, and it happens. Look, I'm the first one to agree it happens. I mean, I have restaurants, and I know if somebody came in and said, I had an allergy and I can't eat this, I don't know if some of the kids that ring them up, I mean, I say kids because they're, early 20s. I don't know if they would say, oh, there's tree nuts in that pasta, or there's, cross-contaminate. I would probably bet a ton of money that they wouldn't.
So then what do you suggest? Do you
would.
suggest that, like, if like my nephews come in who have severe allergies, in that situation, do you suggest that we say, hey, I have some severe allergies. Can I talk to your manager? Would you suggest that?
That's my next point. Absolutely. So yes, we throw the responsibility back to the guest that has the allergy, but the guest also has to accelerate that and say, you know what, this is a really severe allergy. Can I please speak to your main kitchen line or your manager? I really need to make sure that my child is not going to get sick, or my husband. And it happens. I mean, I have people that will literally email or call the restaurant and say, hey, we're having a party. I have a guest here that can't eat this or that's severely allergic to this. Can you accommodate them? Especially because at some restaurants we can't. Like, if you truly have a sensitivity to gluten, we are not a gluten-free kitchen. We have hand-tossed real pizza. And if any restaurant that is Italian, that makes pizza from scratch, that has dough machines, is going to tell you that they are 100% gluten-free kitchen, they are liars. Because when you run that dough machine and that thing's spinning around, there's flour going up in the air. I'm going to tell you, when we clean out all the refrigeration and the seals, the amount of flour that you clean. So if any restaurant tells you that they're gluten-free, or, you can eat here because you're celiac, they're liars. So, and I hear it all the time. So, it goes back to, yes, it's the guest responsibility, but I really believe, as the restaurateur owning multiple restaurants, that you do have to take responsibility, because you're not going to always have the staff that follows 100%, and you don't want that liability of getting somebody sick. You
don't want the liability, but it has to be a group thing. Like I've had people I've waited on that they'll order, and I will say, any well-trained server will say before they walk away from the table, any allergies or dietary restrictions we should be aware of. And if nobody pipes up, and then their appetizer will come out, inevitably somebody will say, oh, I can't have this, I'm allergic. I'm going to go back to almonds. I'm allergic to almonds. And I was like, okay, well, I asked if there were allergies or dietary restrictions. And I'm going to tell you what the answer was that I got. They're like, oh, I only think of that in regards to dessert.
Yeah.
So people don't understand that nuts can be in everything, not just a dessert. Like there are desserts that don't have nuts listed, but if it's like an Italian pastry, they use almond flour a lot. And that's never going to be listed on the menu. And so if you have an allergy and you're listening to this, I am begging you, when you go to any type of restaurant, please communicate your allergies clearly. And if you're going to a fast casual place and maybe you're unsure whether the message is getting across, like Michele said, absolutely say, you know what, can I just talk to the manager real quick? I just want to go over my allergies. There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to be labeled a Karen. You're not going to be labeled a Chad as long as you're really nice and respectful about it.
Right.
But you have to take your life. You have to be responsible for your own health. And we're here to help you with that. But you also have to be responsible.
You have to be educated and you have to know when to communicate correctly and ask the right questions.
Yeah.
But here's another question. So you now own the restaurant. It's a busy Saturday night. Your kitchen is crazy busy. When's it appropriate to say no? And we really can't accommodate that right now. When do you do that? Because
you know what? I love that you're bringing this up because there was somebody on TikTok not over the summer. She did a post, I think it went viral, and she was like, I'm celiac, I'm on Nantucket. I went into this restaurant. There's going to be 6 of us. And I walked in and she said, hey, just so you know, I'm celiac. And they were like, we are too busy. I'm sorry. We cannot confirm we don't have cross-contamination. And I was like, good for the restaurant for saying that. And she was pissy about it. She was like, I can't believe they said this to me. And I chimed in, shocking. And I was like, they just saved your life. So maybe you could be a little less pissy. I understand you wanted to eat there. I'm sure there's other restaurants in Nantucket that would love to have your business. They actually just did you a favor.
Exactly. And you have to remember when you have a smaller kitchen, especially Nantucket. I mean, I lived there for 16 years. We had a beach house there. We spent every summer there. And when you have a restaurant that is a 5x5 box. I'm talking like they have the smallest kitchens you've ever seen and they pump out food for seatings. I mean, I remember Company of the Cauldron, even my husband made a comment like, that's your kitchen? And I mean, and there's such a well-oiled machine. And then somebody comes in and says, oh, I'm allergic to X. And then the chef looks at it and says, no, heck no.
Correct.
I mean, it would throw off his entire.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier about the choreography.
It's
a kink in the chain. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, I actually applaud that restaurant. I wish I knew what the name of it was. I can't remember, but I applaud them for being honest and like, I'm sorry, we cannot tell you with 100% certainty that there will not be cross-contamination. They did her a favor. I know it's inconvenient, but it's better than sitting down, taking up the table, waiting to get your order and them going, yeah, we can't 100% guarantee. And by the way, guys, not for nothing, even when you come to a restaurant, you tell us your allergies, we will always say as wait staff, we will absolutely do everything in our power to make sure that there's no cross-contamination, but we cannot 100% guarantee it. That is the line that every server worth their salt has been trained to say. And then it's up to the guest to go, it's okay. I'm gonna go forward. I'm gonna trust you. We gave the disclaimer. We're gonna do our best. But like you said, Michele, there's flour flying all over the place.
Well, and you have to remember, you source different ingredients. You know, even though you're maintaining different prep areas and everything's separated, certain ingredients come into the restaurant. You know, so you don't know where that was cross-contaminated or if there's something they're not telling you. So, you know, you can only do as much. You know, they say knowledge is power. So you only can do as much as what you know. And you can only react or resolve what you know. So it's so important to, and this goes back to what I said, what's the best practices, you know, from the consumer standpoint, communicate as much as you can. From the restaurant side, ask as many questions as you can. And if the two work together, then it's a great dining experience and the person eats and the guest eats safely and has an amazing experience and leaves and stays healthy.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Now I want to talk about dietary restrictions for a minute because this is something that I get a lot in New York. I'm sure everybody gets it everywhere, but I'm in New York. So whatever the fad diet is of the moment, that is what we get a lot of.
Or the shot where they don't eat.
Or the shot where they don't eat. And I am not judging. You do you. Whatever makes you happy. If you don't have a big appetite, God bless. But when it's a fad diet and you're coming in and you're like, I can't have any carbs, or I can only have protein and vegetables. I can only have this. I can't have that. Like, Listen, it's all you. If that's your choice, that's great. We will do our best to work with you. I've had many people say, listen, I'm on this diet. I can only have, let's just say, protein and vegetables. I'm like, great. This is what I'm going to suggest that you have from the menu. And then I will walk them through the menu. So this way, it's an interactive experience. They feel safe because I am walking them through what they can and can't have expertly, because I have been trained by my management, by my restaurateurs, by everyone, right? And so, but just know that if you're coming into a restaurant, a suggestion, and you are on a fancy diet, please take a look at the menu before you walk in the door, because I can't tell you the amount of time I have spent walking through every single solitary dish on a menu because of somebody's fad diet, and I just got slammed with 3 tables
Okay, so
on top of that.
you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in Italy, we're in Venice. And of course, I Google the best restaurants to eat in Venice because we've been there multiple times. So I'm looking for
Oh,
something
nice.
totally different. So I find this restaurant, and I mean, you know me, but you don't know me that well. I am the pickiest eater in the world.
Really?
I do not eat a
I
lot.
am
Like, I
surprised
don't
to
eat
hear that.
fish. I'm pretty bad. And so I Google this restaurant. I put it into, GPS, and we're on maps, and we're walking through all these little streets, and we're like 40 minutes into the other end of Venice. And we get to this little restaurant, and I look at the menu, and I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing I can eat here. So we potentially sit down because I felt bad. We had a reservation. I'm like, I'll just have a glass of wine. We sit down, and I look at the menu, and I'm like,
It's okay.
Janara, there's
Yeah.
literally not one thing I will eat here. Nothing. Like, and I looked at the menu, but of course it's one of those menus where they change it seasonally and they switch the menu. So I looked at a menu, and I'm like, okay, this is definitely not what was online or not what I looked at. So instead of torturing the server, because I mean, he looked like he was not ready to be tortured by me,
Yeah.
I just
Yes.
said, thank you so much for the water. And Janara left him $10, and we excused ourselves from the table. So I'm listening to your story, and I'm like, oh, please, if more guests would go in realizing what the menu is, if you know for a fact there's nothing you're going to eat on that menu, there's nothing that they can change or take away, it's probably not the best place to sit and eat, because if
Yes.
they're busy and they're dining, they're not going to make it for you anyway. I mean, the server looked at me like, all right, you pain in the ass woman. This is
Right.
Italy.
You
Enjoy
American.
the
Yeah.
damn food.
Yeah.
You
You
know?
stupid American. Yeah.
You stupid American. This is, Italy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But
No.
we got up. Janara was so embarrassed. He's like, Michele, we just walked 40 minutes to eat at this damn restaurant. We passed 300 restaurants, and you wanted to eat here. And now we're walking back, and I had water.
Oh.
He felt
Oh
so bad. He put
no.
like 10 euro on the table. He's like, I'm so sorry.
Well, I mean, at least listen, he was generous. He did the right thing. But you
Yeah,
took up his table for like 10 minutes. So,
not even.
right.
I
Not
think
even.
five. But you have
Right.
to understand,
So,
we got in, and he wanted to sit us
yeah.
outside, and then I didn't want to sit outside. Then he put us inside. I was definitely a pain in the ass that night.
Oh dear God. You're like the American Karen over there. They're like, who is this
Who is
Karen?
this pain in the ass?
Oh my God. Yeah. No, I would love for there to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? I would just love for when people come to eat, if they know that they're walking in the door with an allergy, an intolerance, or restriction, more so a restriction, but or a preference, to just do a little bit of homework, or just say to the server, hey, listen, this is what I can eat. Just, I'll take a plain piece of protein and some vegetables. What do you got? Like this way, so you don't torture them.
Yeah.
But with allergies, it's different. With allergies, we will take all the time that you need. And as a matter of fact, I had a regular customer somewhere. I don't want to say the restaurant, but he had so many allergies that he would come in with a business card already printed out.
That's a good
And he would
idea.
just hand it to us, and we would give it to the chef, because it was like onions, garlic, it was an entire business card full of allergies, and we
Yeah.
would just hand it over to the chef, and the chef was able to say, okay, Krista, let's go through this. And then we would go through the menu with that business card together and be like, this is what he can have. And then I would go back to the table. So that takes a lot of time, which we're happy to do, because we want you to have a fabulous experience and not die. But it also screws up our timing, because now, in the meantime that I've been going through the entire menu with your allergies with the chef, I've just now been triple sat, and now I'm behind the 8 ball. Not nobody's fault. That's the job. I signed up for it. I'm happy to do it. And that's somebody who was prepared. So can you imagine what happens when someone's not prepared and they don't talk about their allergies or intolerances or restrictions? Like, when I go out with my friend who's celiac, she already knows we do not go to any restaurant. First of all, there's this website for celiacs, and they go through restaurants in all different cities and all different states here in the country, and it will tell you what is sort of celiac approved, and we will only go to those restaurants, and I will only go to those restaurants with her.
Okay.
And
I didn't know
so,
there
yes,
was a website for that.
I know
That's
I can't think of it off the top of my head. We'll tag it in the
that's a great idea
notes
for
for
anybody
this.
listening. That's a great idea because I didn't know it existed.
Yeah, it's great. So I'll tag it in the notes for once this airs. But we will only go to those restaurants. And the second she sits down, hi, I'm celiac, and everybody will say, don't worry, we got you. We already know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And we've never had an issue. So that's somebody who does their homework before they even go out the door. And to what you were talking about with Italy, like, she won't go to a restaurant if it's not approved.
Yeah.
Because she already knows, why am I going to torture people? Why am I going to, like, going back to that girl in Nantucket?
Of course.
Why am I going to go someplace if they can't accommodate me and make them feel bad, and then I look like an insane person?
Yeah. So, here's another point, another question. And I guess this goes back again to the restaurateur. What training, if God forbid something happens, do they have an emergency protocol? Because there's so many restaurants that it's like, I've seen it happen in my restaurant. Something happens and they're right away, they're like, oh my God, what do we do? Like, and it's stay calm. Let's, what's your plan? Like, what's the allergic reaction response plan? Because there needs to be one. Obviously you call 911 immediately, but what do you do in the interim?
Right.
And
well, that's tricky because we can't have EpiPens. And like in New York, if you have a headache and I'm your server and you say to me, hey, do you have any Tylenol? I'm not even allowed by law to give that to you. Mm-hmm. So though we have Benadryl, because everybody has a first aid kit, right, in their kitchen, and there's Benadryl in there, by law, we're not allowed in New York. By law, we're not allowed to give it to you. But in that situation, like, I'm happy to break the law and give you Benadryl if you don't have your EpiPen on you, because I want you not to die. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yes, of course.
The problem with that, though, is, the paramedics and the emergency responders will tell you, avoid giving anything, food, drink, medication, unless they tell you, because it actually can interrupt or interfere with their response and their first aid when they get there. So
I wouldn't do it just to be like, here, take this. They would have to ask for it, of course.
Yeah.
No, we can't give, like I said, in New York, we can't give anything. But like in that emergency situation, while you're waiting for 911 to come, if they ask for it, as a manager, I would absolutely be like, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and watch you die. If this is what you're asking for, I'm going to give it to you. But no, it's scary. It is absolutely scary.
It's a huge topic. And it's funny, when you said we should talk about it, I thought, heck yeah. I mean, most people don't know how serious it is. Some people just brush off allergies, and you don't realize, the amount of FDA regulations, the liability, the training, the communication, the food handling, cross communication, documentation. The amount that goes into allergies is in a restaurant is unbelievable.
It's ridiculous. The FDA actually I always found this hilarious. The FDA considers ice an FDA categorized food. So like when the health department comes in and does their surprise inspections, if this ice scoop is actually in the ice, where it's never supposed to be, by the way, then you'll get dinged and you'll get points off, because ice is considered an FDA food.
Yeah.
So yes, cross-contamination can be anywhere at all times. And there's lots of food handling, safety, and all that fun stuff that goes into it. But really, from a guest service kitchen point of view, it really boils down to the guest must communicate clearly up front all allergies. Even if you don't think you see it on the menu, it doesn't matter. Tell us your damn allergies. Please, I am begging you. And then it is up to the front of the house to make sure it is communicated clearly. It's in the POS, and then you walk and talk to the chef, and then it goes to the back of the house. And then it is up to the chef to make sure nothing walks out of that kitchen that's not approved by them without having an allergy. If all those three things can happen, there will not be any issues, and everybody will have a great time. But it's the trifecta. All three of those things have to happen.
Yeah.
Don't you
Agreed.
think?
Agreed.
Yay. All right.
We agree on something.
We agree more than we don't.
Well,
We do.
Krista,
It's
can
just
you?
that I get nervous about allergies. Like I said, I have 3 family members that this is like, they could die. And so when you see it up close and in person, and then, obviously you're in a restaurant full of hundreds of people, you don't want anyone to be ill.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, can you believe we are 40 minutes into our
Come
3rd
on.
episode? Time flies when you and I are talking.
When we're arguing. And
our
Fallon
3rd
is in
episode
big trouble.
done.
Tell Fallon she's big trouble. Huge.
You can tell her. Say, Fallon. Actually,
I'm
I
gonna
shouldn't
tell
even
her.
have said that.
Oh, no,
only
she's
done it
done
one
now.
time.
I don't ever want to hear Fallon ever again saying that she has a cilantro allergy. There's no such thing.
She only
That
did it
little
one time.
witch.
And I looked at her, I'm like, you don't have an allergy. She's like, I just hate it. I can't even stand the
That
smell
little
of it.
witch. I'm going to be all over her. She's done for. All right, guys, that is another episode of Dine Dish. Thank you for listening again. We'll be back next week with more fun insanity.
Yes.
Until then,
the
have a great week.
Coming. We love these
Yes.
topics because then we get to answer your questions and you get to hear us talk about topics that you want to hear. Not just what we want to talk about.
Keep the questions coming. We love it. Thanks,
We
guys.
love it.
We will talk to you next week.
All
Cheers.
right. Thanks, Krista. Talk to you soon.
You too. Cheers.
Okay, bye.